Hey, how are you? Happy, what is it, Friday morning? 10:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 for all of the people in Tacoma, LA, and Clark County, Washington. Hi, Pete Capel, how are you? Well, it's early morning for us on the West Coast. It's the middle of the morning for all of you on the East Coast, and it's building the public sector one leader at a time. My name is Ian Hill, and I welcome you as we launch this new initiative. Along with APWA, we're proud that you have joined us. This is the director's track, so if you're an emerging leader or frontline, then you're in the wrong track. Come back later today, right, Keith? Come back later. How are you? Now, for some of you, you're joining us for the second and some third time that you've participated in programs. As I mentioned, Clark County, Washington, you've been with us before. South Bend, Indiana, you've been with us before. And we welcome some newcomers. I mentioned LA Engineering Bureau. Thank you for joining us. And Kissimmee is joining us. In Coca, Florida as well. All the way up in Rhode Island, we've got people joining us. How about Oklahoma City and Lincoln, Nebraska, and Ames, Iowa, and Lewiston, Idaho? We've also got some people from north of the border, Burlington, Ontario, and good people in Alberta, and all the way out in Nova Scotia, I believe. We just welcome all of you building the public sector. Now, today's program is Ignite the Fire. Ignite the Fire. And everybody always thinks, well, that's kind of a trite. Ignite the fire. What is that all about? Well, what that's all about is this: inertia. You see, we have to overcome inertia. The physical law of motion, inertia. Now, what does inertia say? Inertia says that a body at rest tends to, that's right, stay at rest. And a body on a certain trajectory tends to stay on that trajectory. And that if you want something different to occur, then you have to overcome this inertia. There has to be a force applied that's greater than the one being applied at the time. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to overcome inertia. We're going to do that through a series of exercises and dialogue, because we've got to get our hearts and minds in the right place to learn. So today we're going to go through this program. We're going to go through its principles and its ideas, roles and responsibilities, some of the technical aspects. And then we're going to lay the foundation for the learning to begin. Some of you know me. Some of you have met me over the years. Others of you have no idea who I am. So let me just clarify. For those that know me, remind, and for those that don't, maybe a little bit of information. A couple of years ago, I got a call from APWA. I got a call because they said, Ian, we want you to create a program for our members. We know that you're an advocate for the public sector. We know that you're a champion for the public sector. Will you and your organization build a leadership program? I said, that's kind of funny, because your members, your sector has been on my heart. You see, I've always been an advocate for community. I was a business person in the past, ran a large organization, then had a venture capital, was a part of a venture capital fund, and have had success and failure in life. Well, I Googled you. You've done some pretty amazing things. Yes, we've been very fortunate in life to do some pretty cool things. And life has been good to us. And I have more than I could have hoped to have. I'm very blessed in life. And it affords me the opportunity to kind of do the things I want to do. So we have always been an advocate for community and advocate for kids and families and the like. And throughout that philanthropic endeavors of opening schools and building playgrounds all across North America and beyond, starting charities, I was always an advocate for certain aspects of the public sector. Park and recreation and others, and social services. But then it dawned on me that without a platform, without a framework, without an infrastructure for community to happen, there would be no community. And when that dawned on me, I started doing research. I started looking throughout history. And you know what I found? I found that every great society had leading edge infrastructure for its day. And whether that was the Dutch Empire, the Spanish Empire, whether that was the English Empire or whether it was the United States, as it grew and blossomed into a prominent nation, world leader. The one thing that they had in common was leading edge infrastructure for the day. I mean, the Romans had aqueducts, right? I mean, the Dutch had the windmills and the waterways and on and on and on. So for the day. And then it hit me. The public sector is critical. So I didn't come to the realization that the public works aspect of the public sector was critical and vital right away. It didn't dawn on me right away. It took me a little bit of time, a little slow, Keith. But then it hit me through all that little evaluation that you were critical to the success of our communities. And as fate would have it, an incredibly serendipitous time when APWA called, because it was just about the time that I had realized your incredible value and importance of you personally and every member of your department and your department as a whole. You touch every citizen from cradle to grave. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that all of the philanthropic work that we were doing and all of the different things that we were trying to do to build healthy communities, that you were a key piece of that. You were the beginning of that because you designed, constructed, maintained the platform, the framework, and the infrastructure for community to happen. So we launched the first program, Leadership in Changing Times, and literally 23,000 people, hundreds of departments went through that program. It was awesome. So this year, APWA called again and said, will you do it again? And I said, no. I said, no, I won't do it again. Why won't you? Well, because that's kind of getting tired. I think we got to do something different. I think we got to keep the same of the old because there's great stuff in Leadership in Changing Times. And I think we got to add some new. But I want to champion a new cause. What's that? I said, I want to champion the cause of building. I got to adjust my computer here. Hold on, everybody. So I want to champion the cause of the public sector, but I want to champion that cause one leader at a time. What? They said, one leader at a time? What do you mean? I said, I want to champion that cause one leader at a time. I got to shut something off here. There we go. I want to champion that cause one leader at a time because that's the key to the success of the public works sector and the public sector as a whole. Plato said that there was no greater life lived than that committed to public service, that there was no greater life lived, that it was noble and honorable endeavor, that it was the key to building thriving communities because it was hub of community. But those days have faded and gone. And now you turn on the TV, the radio, your search engine, you open it up, your smartphone, and people are bashing the public sector at every turn. And I don't think that's good. Not from a political standpoint. I just don't think that's good for a free society. We need those people to do good jobs. We need you to do a good job. So if we were going to reestablish the public sector as a noble and honorable and making a significant difference and impact, which I believe, you believe, then I thought you needed to do it one leader at a time. It still doesn't make sense, Ian. You see, in the 21st century, I would suggest to you that organizational leadership capacity is the key. Organizational leadership capacity. Now, this stuff is important so you know where I'm coming from. Organizational leadership capacity is key. Notice I didn't say organizational leadership capability. I think we have capable leaders. Directors of public works. I've met great ones. I mentioned Pete Capel. He's a great one. And many others. The challenge isn't that we don't have good leaders in our public works sector. The challenge is we don't have enough. What do you mean? Capacity. Leadership capacity. You think about a great department. A great department is great usually because they have great formal and informal leaders. They have leaders at all levels of the organization. They have leaders in the head office, and they have leaders all the way the furthest away. Both formal and informal leaders are what make a department great. People with titles and without. Organizational leadership capacity is the key to success of a department in the 21st century. Why? Because when organizational leadership capacity is high, when there's great leadership at all levels, when people know how to lead themselves, when they know how to work with others, when they know how to collaborate, when they know how to innovate, when they take great pride in their work, when organizational leadership capacity is high, great things happen, great things get done. People are in alignment with one another. When organizational leadership capacity is low, in other words, we don't have people working together, there's angst and a toxic environment, if you will, then things don't get done. So if we were in challenging times and changing times, I would suggest to you the key is leadership capacity. So then if you were to build the leadership capacity, if you set out to build the leadership capacity of the public sector, and more specifically the public works sector, how would you do it? One leader at a time. Because one leader creates an incredible ripple effect. One formal or informal leader who is on their game can do tremendous things. One informal or formal leader is a phenomenal force multiplier. Think about that, Keith. When great leadership is present, great things happen. When poor leadership is present, bad things happen. So over the next 44 minutes, or whatever it is, 47 minutes, I'm going to lay the groundwork to unpack this concept. And then for the next 15 weeks, we're going to equip you to build a department full of leaders. You're the director. You must raise organizational leadership capacity. You must be great at leading, and you must raise the level of organizational leadership capacity. Everybody in the department must be a leader. Everybody in the department must be an individual that can lead themselves and can work in alignment with others. Keith, do me a favor. Can you grab that board for me? So the premise here is that the key today is organizational leadership capacity. Now, some of you never even heard that, right? Don't even know what that is. But we'll unpack that. That red one's fine. He's bringing me a pen. Thank you very much, sir, because I forgot to grab it. And we'll use that in just a second. So, organizational leadership capacity. But before we can get into organizational leadership capacity, we got to talk about your leadership capacity. Are you ready to lead? Now, I know you know budgets. I know, maybe you came up on the engineering side of things. You're a trained professional engineer, or maybe you came up on the public works side of things. You started maybe you started driving a plow, who knows? And you've worked your way to the top. I know you know budgets. I know you know streets and roads, water. And some of you know parks. Some of you have within your portfolio snow removal of the whole town. Some of you have parks. Some of you have cemeteries. Hell, some of you even have recreation under you now. You're a well-heeled professional. Got that. But do you know how to grow organizational leadership capacity? Because at the end of the day, you can know all that stuff, but if you don't know how to grow organizational leadership capacity in the 21st century, you're going to have real challenges. You're not going to be able to get more done with less. So as we move towards that over the next 15 weeks, growing your capacity to grow your organization's leadership capacity, and in turn, create a greater impact in the community. We have to lay the foundation and lay the groundwork, and that's what we're going to do today. Because it's my belief, if we can grow individual leadership capacity That grows organizational leadership capacity. That grows the leadership capacity of the sector, which grows that leadership capacity of our countries, both the United States, Canada, and we might even have somebody joining us from Australia. Linsmore. So that's the premise of this whole thing. Well, what are you getting out of this? Well, you stop and think about it. You've paid $795 to have every single employee in your department trained. And that the training portal is available to you for a year. Stop and think about that. And we split that with APWA. $795 for 1,000 employees to be trained, 500 employees to be trained, 300 employees to be trained. Come on now. There's no money to be made here. This costs us more than we make. This is a philanthropic endeavor. This is an endeavor to make the world a better place. And we've picked you to do it because you touch every citizen from cradle to grave, and you are an essential and critical service to the communities that you reside and you serve. Okay, let's jump into it. Hopefully you got your handouts. I got my computer up. No more handouts for me anymore. We're going computer now. How about that? Hopefully you've printed out your handouts. Let's just move through this. Now, I have some assumptions about you, and you have to know my assumptions about you to better understand where I'm coming from. You must know my assumptions. I've now given you background. Now you must know my assumptions, because if you don't know my assumptions, then you'll have absolutely no idea where I'm coming from over the next 15 weeks. So write these down. Assumption number one. Assumption number one is that you're a professional. A professional. Now, let me unpack that. I don't just mean you have fancy letters after your name. My assumption is that you're a professional, that for 15 weeks, I'm going to pour my life into professionals. People who care about their work. People who understand that their work touches every citizen from cradle to grave. People that understand that their work is vital, critical, and important. People that understand that their work even has a generational impact. And people whose performance and attitude matches that high calling. That's the kind of people I assumed I'd be dealing with for 15 weeks. To me, professionalism isn't about letters after your name. It's about an attitude. All of us have met people that have fancy letters after their name, but frankly are completely unprofessional. But that's not you. You get up in the morning and are on a mission, because the chosen vocation that you've selected for life is important and valuable. And you know that the people within your department are doing all that they can to make the impact that they're called to make. And you also realize that we're in changing and challenging times. You're leaders. And you don't just lead within the four walls of your department. I assume you lead outside of the four walls of your department. Maybe you're on a board or a commission. Maybe you're on a volunteer organization. Maybe you're a member of the Rotary. Maybe you coach Little League, minor hockey, whatever. You're a leader in your place of faith. You're a leader in your neighborhood. You're a leader in your community. I assume you're a professional. I assume that you want to do something great. I assume that you're not one of those individuals that's just sitting around going through the motions of life. I don't think that you're one of those directors that have quit and stayed. We all know directors that have quit and stayed. I don't believe you're a quit and stayed director. I don't believe you're just riding out your time. I believe that you are one that is committed, dedicated to purpose and to mission. Oh, you might be beat up a little bit. Oh, you might be kicked around a little bit. You might have even gotten a little bit of jaded and cynical. But in your essence and in your heart, you want to do something great. Oh, side note, I just don't assume you want to do something great as a professional. I'm assuming that you're a participant in this program because you want to do something great with your life. With your life. And that's important to you, where you're going in life. And that you want to leave a legacy of greatness behind you. And then my final assumption is this. My final assumption is that you'll try something. That something that we talk about, you will try. And whether you try because you know you've got to improve in certain areas, or you try because you're role modeling for your direct reports and the rest of your department, you're going to try. Some of you know that in the Leadership in Changing Times program, everyone had to make a commitment. Well, this program, Building the Public Sector One Leader at a Time, we have that component as well. You will make a commitment to something you're going to work on for the next 15 weeks. You will make a commitment. And I'll hound you till you do. You're going to make a commitment. What do you mean make a commitment? What are you going to get better at? Pick out one thing. So I assume you're going to pick out one thing. You're going to try something. So those are my assumptions of you. I think they're reasonable assumptions. I think that they're assumptions that, for the most part, would probably be accurate. Yeah, but you don't know me. How could you make those assumptions? Oh, I don't have to know you. I'm just telling you what I assume about you when we built this thing. Look at that bubble there in the middle. You don't need to be sick to get better. So here's my other assumption. My other assumption is you're an expert. And in certain areas, you could teach me more than I could possibly know. You've forgotten more about some of the things that you know than I'll ever know. So you don't need to be sick to get better. I'm not implying that you're not phenomenal at what you do. We're talking about growing organizational leadership capacity. We're talking about the competencies and skills to do so. We're talking about leading in the 21st century and marshaling human capital. Marshaling human capital. Do you know how to get the best out of every human being in your department and create a culture to do so? To create operational efficiencies, to do more with less, to make a greater impact in the community, to advocate for the profession, to put infrastructure in the forefront of elected official and decision makers' minds, all while still running an efficient and effective and impactful department. That's what we're talking about. Growing your own capacity so you can grow organizational leadership capacity. But you don't need to be sick to get better. Turn the page. So let's talk about expectations. What can you expect from us? Well, you can expect that this program is built in science, behavioral science. Now, I've already seen some of you, the new participants, new departments, you didn't watch the orientation video. I can tell you that right now. Just being straight up with you. That somebody didn't watch the orientation video. If you haven't watched the orientation video, you need to go back and watch it. It's 26, 27 minutes because it gives you every aspect of the program. We got people emailing us 5 minutes before the program starts. Hey, I won't be able to make it today. Can I watch it later? Well, yeah, that's the whole thing of the program. Or I don't know how to sign in. What? 5 minutes before we start? Come on now. Come on now. That's crazy talk. Make sure everybody in the department that's participating in the program watches the orientation video so they can take full impact. So they can take, what's the word I want? Full what? Full access, full participation, maximum impact. They got to watch the orientation video. But let me unpack it really quick. Give you the short version. For those of you that aren't familiar with the model, the learning model. If you are important and if you are critical and if you are essential, then we should build a program that matches that level. So this program is based on two very simple learning truisms. One, 21 days to establish a habit, blended learning approach. It takes 21 days to establish a habit. You've read books and tapes, you've read books, listen to tapes, I've read books, listen to tapes. You've gone to workshops, I've gone to workshops. And typically 7 to 10 days after everything's gone. Why? Because it's not reinforced. It takes 21 days to establish a new habit. So if we were going to introduce some new ideas and ask people to put them in their toolkit, we needed to support them in the doing thereof. So that's why everything is based on 21 days. Here's the simplicity. Today, we're introducing information. Then for 21 days, we're going to reinforce this information. How? Through the beauty of technology and a blended learning approach. A blended learning approach. What does that mean? That means we're going to give you some things to hear. We're going to give you some things to see. We're going to give you some things to talk about. We're going to give you some things to do. That's blended learning. Hear it, read it, write it, think it, talk it, do it. I learn it. 21 days to establish a habit, blended learning. That's why as a director or an executive leader, it's so important that every member of your team has a username and password or an email so that we can send them the information between the sessions. That's when the learning really occurs. That's why it's so important that you as a director are dialoguing this information, talking about, hey, what did you think about what Ian said? Hey, what did you think about that exercise? Hey, I did this and I did that. What did you do? It's the 3 weeks in between. Encinitas, California, when they participated in the program, they told me that the true learning, the true insight happened in the weeks between the sessions, when they talked amongst each other. This should be a catalyst for dialogue over this 15 weeks, but that comes from you as the executive leader. So you can count on us to have a learning framework and a learning platform. And if you look at the next page explains all the science behind it and exactly how it works. You need to know how it works. Then you can expect us to utilize competencies. 5 competencies of today's effective leader. Now, some of you, South Bend, Clark County, a couple of others who have participated in the program before, you might be looking at those competencies and saying, Ian, these are the same competencies for leadership in changing times. Yeah, they are, because the competencies don't change. However, we've got some unique takes, some different angles, some new learnings, some new information that have evolved over the last couple years. So the philosophy and the concept of leadership that I believe in the 21st century, that ain't gonna change. It's foundation. But the techniques and approaches and the angles that we take to teach it are going to be different. We've tried to pull the best from leadership in changing times, refresh it with new and insight and wisdom, which we're going to get into in just a minute, around this idea of building leadership capacity within an organization. So we're going to teach you 5 competencies, and you'll see those. Agent of change, big picture, holistic systems thinking, catalyst for responsibility, continuous improvement, engagement approach to planning, or engagement approach to planning, continuous improvement. Through the lens of building organizational leadership capacity. Now, your mid-level leaders will learn it through the lens of leading others. And then your front line will learn it through the lens of growing their own individual leadership capacity. And what else can you expect from us? This learning portal. A couple of you sent emails. This is how I know you didn't watch the orientation video. A couple of you sent emails talking about, well, where can we find all the materials? Where do we get the handouts? What? Watch the orientation video. It's all on the platform. And that's the beauty of this thing, right? This platform, you have this learning portal that you're in right now. Once it's built out, you have it for a year. You have access to this information for a year. So if people can't participate, they can't watch, or you can't participate, you can't watch, then it's available to you. So remember, we introduce a concept, we reinforce it for 21 days. Some email, some video, some exercises. I always say this, 15 minutes a day. If you can put in 15 minutes a day, you're going to be just fine. If you can put in 15 minutes a day, set aside 15 minutes a day, and learning will occur. All right, what do we expect from you? We expect you to give your best. If you're going to do this program, do this program. Yeah, but sometimes I'm busy, I'm buried. 15 minutes a day. Just give it 15 minutes a day. In the learning portal, in the email, this. Yeah, but this is longer than 15 minutes. Yeah, well, I guess that's true. 15 minutes a day. But give your best. And especially you. The departments of the 110 or whatever it's been that have participated in our programs in the last 3 years. The departments that have seen the greatest impact are the departments where the director is an active participant. Because you set the tone, you set the pace. The departments that have only had individual growth, like we haven't had anybody that said it didn't work for us. But we've had whole departments that have transformed, or we've had individual pockets of success within a department. You know what the defining factor always is? the level and degree that the director and the executive leaders are participating. That's what it is. Because you set the tone. You set the pace. If you take it serious, everybody else does. If you participate, everybody else does. So we expect you to give your best. We expect you to do the assignments. Now, none of them will be that onerous. None of them will be that difficult. But we expect you to do the assignments. We expect you to be coachable. You're going to start sending me information. Nothing too onerous, as I said a moment ago, but we're going to expect you to send in information. We expect you to put some of this stuff into practice. Do it. Try it. Not only for your own benefit, but to role model for others. And we expect your honest feedback. Now look, I don't need you sending me emails talking about, I don't like your sweater. Or I don't like your style. Kiss my ass. I don't care if you like my style. You're getting the program basically for free. But if something we said was going to happen doesn't happen, I need to know so that we can get that fixed. If something that I say or we say is going to occur doesn't occur, make me aware so we can rectify it immediately. And give me feedback on opinion. Maybe you don't like something. Maybe I made an assertion and you don't agree. All right, let's have some back and forth. But don't give me feedback on style. It's clear that some of you are not going to like my approach. Some of you already don't like it. You're already got your knickers in a knot because you don't like my approach or my style or what I'm wearing or the picture we got in the back. Isn't that a beautiful picture? You know where that's from? That's from Alberta. It's a picture from Alberta. Where are you broadcasting from today, Ian? Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe, Northern Nevada. Today's Nevada Day. It's a holiday here. We're all working on a holiday because we love you so much. So honest feedback. Those are the expectations. But be clear, there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to attempt, and more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. If we're going to build the public sector and bring it back to that noble and honorable that Plato talked about, and if our strategy is to do it one leader at a time, that's perilous to attempt. That's uncertain in its success. You see, it's hard to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. So, is success in this program guaranteed? No, because nothing new is guaranteed. But we're trying. We believe in you, we believe in your importance, and we believe as we grow individual leaders and then we raise departmental leadership capacity, great things happen. Not just within the four walls of the department, but also in the communities that they serve. All right, turn the page. Now, I would suggest to you we are in changing times. Drucker said it best. Drucker said that every couple hundred years in Western history, society rearranges itself, and the society that the grandparents knew is completely different than the society the grandchildren know. He called it a time of transformation. I would suggest to you we're in a time of transformation. I would suggest to you that the context that we're attempting to lead in as executive, look, I'm an executive leader. I own companies on both sides of the North American border. I have an international nonprofit. We do projects all the way around the world, as far away as Ghana. So I'm an executive leader. You're an executive leader. As executive leaders, we're leading in a time that we've never been in. What do you mean? There's 6 generations in the workplace. We got a bunch of people, different people from a bunch of different backgrounds with a bunch of different talents, experience, and interests. And we're trying to somehow move them towards a common goal. In your specific instance, you got political pressure, funding issues, you got community perception issues. You've got a populace that doesn't even understand the importance of infrastructure and how in many communities it's literally, if they knew what the infrastructure, if they knew what was going on under the ground, they'd freak out. But nobody wants to pay to improve it. You got some real challenges, man. Let alone the challenges we got in society. Hell, just up the road from us, 45 miles from here, some kid walked into the school the other day and shot people to death, which caused them to lock down my schools. My kids coming home scared and afraid. Come on. We are in changing and difficult times. And to understand how that impacts you, I got to use a visual. And you have a visual right there. I hope this red shows up. You think it will? Sort of. Sort of. Look at. Here is the stated mission of your department. The stated mission of your department. Or the stated mission of our communities. Or the stated mission of our nation. Or the stated mission of whatever. But today, within that, here's what goes on. How many of you agree? That's what goes on. Have you ever worked in this place? What's it like to work in this place? Think of it as an executive leader when you get a phone call and somebody's doing this. Right? Somebody's doing this. You thought you had everybody going like this, but somebody's doing that. Somebody didn't get the memo that we were going this way. Now, you know what's funny? Whole communities are like this. Here's where we're headed as a community. Whole municipal organizations, right? Park and Rec's going this way. Planning is going that way. The city manager or county manager is going this way. Public Works is going that way. Here's the funny thing. I call it a lack of alignment. You ever had your back out of alignment? When your back is out of alignment, it hurts like you know what. You ever had your car out of alignment? When your car is out of alignment, it costs you a ton of money. Organizations get out of alignment. And when organizations are out of alignment, it hurts. High stress, low morale, sleepless nights. And it costs. It costs a lot when organizations are out of alignment. Now here's the funny thing. I think the key is we got to get organizations in alignment where everybody knows the role, everybody knows the goal, everybody knows what's winning is. Everybody knows the goal, everybody knows their role, everybody knows what winning is. Organizational leadership capacity is the only way to get this kind of alignment. Because I need the individual arrows to lead. They don't need a title. How many of you know that oftentimes the reason these arrows aren't going the way that they should is because informal leaders, this informal leader is taking a group with them in a direction we don't want them to go. Somehow I got to get that arrow going like that. And somehow I need to create a culture, an organizational culture that gets all arrows going like that. So there's no doubt we're in changing times. Drucker was right. We're in a time of transformation. Six generations in the workplace, 7 generations in our society. And whether it's technology, whether it's the family unit, all of these things, all of the incredible changes, and I don't even have to go into them. You know we're in changing times. So to be successful in changing times, I would suggest we must go from here, a lack of alignment of our resources, of our talents, of our abilities, to alignment. There is a power in alignment. But it takes certain leadership skills and leadership approaches today to get the human capital into alignment. Now, what's human capital? Human capital: love, sweat, creativity, innovation, passion, compassion, empathy, vocational knowledge, operational expertise. This guy right here, or gal, this guy or gal right here has love, passion, innovation, operational expertise, vocational wisdom, and they may be great at what they do. I mean, just awesome at what they do, phenomenal at what they do. There's only one problem. They don't work with anybody else. They're horrible at working with other people. They're a terrible team member. Or they've become crusty and jaded and bitter and angry, and they have their wage frozen for the last 4 years, and they're pissed off because they see other public sector employees across the country getting their benefits reduced, and they wonder when theirs are going to get reduced, and on and on and on. And an arrow that used to be going like that all of a sudden is going like this. Or worse, going like that. So somehow, I've got to marshal the human capital of that arrow. I've got to get that arrow going this way with all the other arrows. Now, in today's day and age, I'm not going to be able to bark that arrow into the right direction. I'm not going to be able to shout that arrow into the right direction. I'm not going to be able to intimidate that arrow into the right direction. I'm not going to be able to scream that arrow into the right direction. I'm not. It takes a whole different leadership approach. And for you as an executive leader, it takes a whole different organizational culture. Write this down. We are in a user-driven society. Almost every institution that your direct report or their direct reports interfaces with gives them a say, or at least the feeling that they have a say. Stop and think about it. Every business that you interact with is trying to convince you that you have a say. Every media outlet is trying to convince you that you have a say. We listen to our value customers and we change this app. Think about the way we used to book travel. In the past, we used to book travel by going to a certified professional who had a number from the state or province that said they were legit, a travel agent. We don't go to them anymore. We go look at 5 smiley faces. If 5 smiley faces say the place is worth a damn, we go. If 5 smiley faces aren't there, we don't go. Even though the people putting in the smiley faces might be slobs. What's your point, Ian? My point is, all of a sudden, people make decisions when they feel like they have a say. People participate and trust things that they feel like people built or had a say in. People won't play, won't participate where they don't have a say. It's a user-driven society. Good, bad, right, wrong, I don't know, but it's user-driven. If you want to get these arrows moving in the right direction, you better create a user-driven organization, or at least present the perception thereof. Otherwise, you're not going to get people's time, talent, and treasure. Look, people will come to work. They have mortgages to pay. They will come to work. But they're not going to give you their best. They're not going to give you all the human capital. Do you, as an executive leader, know how to unleash human capital? Do you know how to create an environment where people are coming up with innovative and creative ideas? Do you know how to create an environment where people are giving their best on a daily basis? Where morale is high and stress is low? Well, that's not up to me. If I didn't have to deal with these commissioners. Well, just because the people who lead you suck doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of being a good leader to those that you're responsible for. Do you know how to get alignment? Now, really quick, because I'm looking at the clock. It used to be easier to get alignment. It used to be easier to get all those arrows going in the right direction. Why? Well, because I could probably relate more to the arrows. The arrows look like me, talk like me, smell like me, ate what I ate, worship my same religion, whatever. Had my same worldview. Have there been times in the last month where you've been talking to somebody and you've thought to yourself, what the hell planet are you from? Not a value judgment, just I don't understand. I do not get where you're coming from. Different worldview. Drucker was right. We're in a time of transformation. So it used to be easier to get these arrows going in the right direction. Another reason it used to be easier to get these arrows going in the right direction is because people had respect for authority. And if the boss told them to do something, people were on it. But that's gone away. People had greater pride, whether that was taught by their parents or their uncle or their coach or the the fraternal or paternal organization their parents were a part of, the service club, the faith institution. They had greater pride in their work. And people were afraid to lose their jobs. But now people are still afraid to lose their jobs, but that doesn't mean they snap to any faster. So there were certain dynamics that presented themselves that allowed us to keep people in greater alignment. These lines were darker. It forced people into alignment. Those days are gone. Those days are gone, in my opinion. And there's a lot of other reasons why it's challenging to get people in alignment today. So over the next 15 weeks, we're going to talk about it. Now, the first thing in talking about it we have to understand is that next diagram. Some of you went to this workshop. Hey, this is the pyramid style of leadership, and the executive leaders are up here, and poop flows downhill, and that's the way most organizations were structured 20 years ago. And then somebody came along and said, oh, that's brilliant, except that sucks, and we got to turn the pyramid upside down. And the frontline employees are here, and mid-level managers, and then executive leaders support the rest. And you as an executive leader, your job is to support. And I would suggest to you that even that is passé. That if you want to get the arrows going in the right direction today, that doesn't even work anymore. You see, people could give a rip that you're the director. People could give a rip that you're the leader. People could give a rip that you have a title. Today it's about influence that comes from respect and trust. Today, if you want to get that arrow going in the right direction, if you want to get that arrow going this way, there's only one way. And it's something that you have to thoughtfully consider as an executive leader. See, the world is flattened. Attitudinally, in governmental entities, there'll always be a hierarchy. There has to be, for a lot of reasons. But attitudinally, the world has flattened, and titles don't mean as much anymore. So if I want to influence one of those arrows and marshal their human capital in a certain direction, my ability and capacity to influence a human being is all based on how much they trust me, how much space the leader occupies in their life, how much they trust the leader. If I trust the leader, I'll take my arrow going this way and I'll move it that way. If I trust the leader. If I trust the organization, I'll take my arrow that's going this way and go that way when asked. I would suggest to you there's a trust deficit in much of our public sector. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. We have a trust deficit. And maybe not in your department, but they've seen and heard other things. Trust deficit. So it's no longer this, but it's also no longer this. It's more flatlined attitudinally. I'm not going to get that arrow going in the right direction if I don't understand how to build trust with another human being and build an organization that's trustworthy. Turn the page. Now, it goes through on this next thing, the competencies that we're going to over the next couple of days or next couple of weeks. We can skip that. Change. Before we can enter into a dialogue about organizational leadership capacity development, about individual leadership capacity development, we have to talk about change. How do we change things? If we don't understand how to change things, we're going to be in trouble. Why? Because progress and change are indelibly intertwined. There can be no progress without change. If you don't have in your toolkit a solid tool for changing you, another human being, a department, if you don't know how to change, if you're not a master of change, you're going to struggle in today's day and age. One, because we're in changing times, and two, because it's necessary. Why are we reluctant to change? It's fearful. We're comfortable. It's dressed in overalls and looks like work. There's a lot of reasons we're reluctant to change. You specifically, as an executive leader, have a malady that precludes you from changing. It's the malady of pretty good. You're pretty good. You wouldn't be an executive leader if you weren't pretty good. You might be damn good. And that's a barrier to change. But hear me, and hear me well. Progress and change are indelibly intertwined. There can be no progress without change. If you're not completely satisfied with your department, something has to change. If you're not completely satisfied with your own performance, something has to change. If you're not completely satisfied with your home life, if you're not completely satisfied with your community and the direction it's going, something has to change. Now, immediately our minds go to, well, whoever leads those things. Let's just get new ones. Well, I don't know if that ever rectifies the problem. Because if they're still using the tired old dogmas and worn out slogans, then what good does it do? If they're using the same approaches and tactics, what good does it do? Oftentimes we sit in these meetings. You've sat in this meeting. Okay, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals, 10. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, we got a crisis, we got to change. Then we have a big meeting. Okay, we're having a big change meeting. Come on now, let's have a meeting. And then somebody yells out, put the 2. And then somebody screams, put the 3. And then somebody yells, I got it, the 4. Oh yeah. And then somebody yells, the 1. And we all walk out of the meeting high-fiving because we changed things, Keith. We changed things. And then 2 weeks later, it's still 10. And we wonder why our employees are apathetic. And we wonder why our citizenry is apathetic. Because nothing ever changes. We talk about it, but we rearrange it and nothing changes. Progress and change are indelibly intertwined. There can be no progress without change. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Einstein said it best when he said, everything within me was only enough to get me where I'm at today. If I want to go any further, if I want to be any better, something has to change. 2 challenges though. 1, 80% of your behavior is unconscious. It's a habit. You heard about it from Covey. 80% of your leadership approaches are unconscious. You're just doing them. And they were built and ingrained in you over a long period of time. And your best boss and your worst boss, life experiences, highs and lows, victories and tragedies, all shape the leader that you are today, and you're pretty good. But oftentimes on the pursuit to excellence, the pinnacle of great, we rest on the plateau of pretty good. I've met executive leader after executive leader that rested on the plateau of pretty good. And while resting on the plateau of pretty good, they died. Figuratively speaking, they died. Because they didn't know how to change. The difference between the first place and the last place runner in the Olympic 100-meter dash is the time that it takes you to say your first name, Ian. And that's the difference between the gold medal winner and the person whose name you never know. The same is true at executive leadership. It is the margins, it's the little things. So if you've been struck with the malady of pretty good, I strongly encourage you over the next 15 weeks to thoughtfully consider changing. But I'm not just going to ask you to thoughtfully consider it. I'm going to give you a way to do it. See, that's the beauty of having 15 weeks. I don't have to go into this right now. But on Monday morning, you're going to get an email that's going to give you a process for changing. On Monday morning, I'm going to put a tool in your toolkit that will help you in your endeavor to change. It's a simple sequence of steps. You don't need to pay Anthony Robbins $1,500 in 3 easy payments. I'm going to give you the tool that thousands have used to change. When you see a deficiency in yourself and you want to rectify that, you'll be able to change. When you see a new skill that you want to acquire, you'll be able to change. And when you need to teach another human being how to change, you'll now have a linear sequential step that you can teach to them. Because when it's linear and it has words to it, it's easier to teach. We call it the change continuum, a 6-step process. that won't guarantee change. I can't guarantee change, but I can guarantee you this: you'll have a hell of a lot greater likelihood. Progress and change are indelibly intertwined. There can be no progress without change. We can't just take 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 anymore and rearrange the numbers and think we're going to get a different answer. There's a 4-year-old little boy counting on us to be better than that. There's a senior on a fixed income counting on us to be better than that. And there's whether you have a department of 50 or 1,000, they are counting on you as the executive leader to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. And the only way to do that is you got to change. But you don't need to be sick to get better. All right, turn the page. Before we can take any journey, we must do an inventory of what we have. So if we're going to go into a 15-week professional development journey to grow our own leadership capacity and the leadership capacity of our organization, we must take inventory. You see, I would suggest to you that optimism and hope are strategies. Optimism is a strategy because if I don't have the capacity to see tomorrow being better than yesterday, if I don't have that capacity, then it's highly unlikely that I will take the steps to make it so. Think about that. If you've become a curmudgeon, if you've become jaded and cynical, if you've become beat up, and if you have been beat up and knocked down and kicked around, so you have just become a little crusty, and you don't believe things can get better, then you shouldn't be in executive leadership. Because executive leaders must have the capacity to see tomorrow being better than yesterday. Because without that optimism, it's highly unlikely that you or the organization you lead will take the steps necessary to make it so. But I also understand how in today's society, it's easy to get the crap kicked out of you. It's easy to feel like what you say and what you do doesn't make a difference. So let me take a moment to remind you of who you are and what you are. First, let me remind you that 70 billion people have lived on this planet, and there's nobody like you. Science says that 70 billion people have lived on the planet, there's nobody like you. Never been anybody like you, never be anybody like you. Why does that matter? I'm just trying to show you the power that you have. Oh, you may feel beat down and kicked around, but I'm trying to show you the power that you have. 70 billion people have lived on the planet. There's nobody like you. Never has been, never will be anybody like you. 70 billion people have lived on the planet, and they say that there's no computer in the world that can touch your brain or my brain. I am dumb as a box of rocks, never went to college or university. 495 students in my graduating class in high school, I was 492nd. And yet there's no computer in the world that can touch my brain. You come from the species that though you do not have wings, you can fly. You come from the species that made it to the moon and back. You harnessed electricity. You built the pyramids. That's you and that's me. Look at what Augmendino wrote there on your handout when he talked about taking inventory. Your eyes have 100 million receptors in them. Your ears have 24,000 little fibers that move. Your eyes can see the flight of a robin or the look of love. Your ears can hear that robin's plea or have someone hear and call out to you and say, I love you. But you know what your eyes can also see? Injustice. You know what your eyes can also see? Wrong. You know what your eyes can also see? When things aren't going the way that they should. And you know what your ears can hear? Your ears can hear whether someone is hurting or not. Your ears can hear when something needs to be fixed. Your ears can hear injustice, or people cry out for justice and hope. What are you seeing every day? What are you hearing every day? How about your heart? You know that there's no machine in the world that can touch your heart. 1 billion times it beats in your lifetime. And with very little care, it works. Look at some of the people you see every day. With very little care, Keith, it works. You can abuse the crap out of it and it works. There's no machine ever designed by man that works like that heart. How about your skin? Fort Knox isn't protected as well as your skin protects you. Your bones, your muscles, all that you are. 70 billion people, dude, you're priceless. Now, I didn't say you feel priceless. I didn't say you act priceless. I'm just telling you what science says. And I believe that you have the ability, and I believe that you have the potential to do great things. And as you do great things in your department, it becomes a beacon of hope to departments all across the country and all around the globe. As Kissimmee does great things, so will Boca Raton. As Pawtucket does great things, so will Burlington, Vermont. As Oshawa does great things, so will Charlottetown. As Charlottetown does great things, so will Sturgeon Falls, Ontario. But if you don't believe in your capacity, then I guarantee you, you don't believe in the capacity of your people. You see, your people are rare and unique creatures with incredible talent and ability. They are priceless treasures. But do you know how to marshal their human capital? Do you know how to get those arrows going in the right direction? Do you know how to do that? And do you know how to create an organizational culture that allows for that? Do you know how to maximize the human potential of those rare and unique creatures that are within your department? 70 billion people have lived on the planet. There's nobody like you and there's nobody like me. I believe that we can do great things because I believe in you. You've forgotten more about your jobs than I'll ever know. You're experts in your vocation. But do you believe that tomorrow can be better than yesterday? You're the rarest of the rare. There's never been anybody like you. There'll never be anybody like you. You're priceless. Over the next couple weeks, we've got to take some. We're about out of time. We'll be done in 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. Over the next couple weeks, I'm going to give you a couple exercises. The first exercise you'll see on the next few pages. It's called the Leadership History Survey. The Leadership History Survey. There's 12 questions. Now, you don't have to write them all out if you don't want, and you don't have to send them in. But I do want you to think about the Leadership History Survey. I call it looking back to move forward. Looking back to move forward. You see, I think before we can establish new leadership approaches, we better look at how the leadership approaches you have today, how they rooted themselves in you. Who was your best boss? Who was your worst boss? What was your first job and its impact? And so on and so on. 12 questions. Now here's what you need to do. Over the next 10 or so days, 12 days, just take a question a day. Just take a question a day and think about it. Or write it out, whatever's most convenient for you. Think about it in your commute, or think about it as you're taking a walk or working out or whatever you do. Just think about a question a day. And then in our coaching session, coming up in a few weeks, I'll talk about what it can mean. In our coaching session, I'll talk about what it can mean. You don't need to send it in. You don't need to turn it in. So that's your first assignment. But it's more of a contemplative assignment. It's a reflective assignment. How did I become the leader I've become? The Leadership History Survey. Go to the last page of your handout. This, I will ask you to send in to me. And we'll send you a little link that you'll be able to fill it out. I call them Life's 5 Most Urgent Questions. Life's 5 Most Urgent Questions. And as we wrap up today, I'll review them with you. Question number 1. What will be your greatest contribution to your family? Question number 2. What will be your greatest contribution to those that you serve? Question number 3. What will be your greatest contribution to those that you've led? Question number 4. What will be your greatest contribution to your organization? And question number 5. What will be your greatest contribution to your community or your society? I think these changing times calls for leaders that put these 5 questions in the forefront of their minds. That's why I call them life's most urgent questions. In a couple weeks, before we get done with this first 3-week block, I'm going to send you a link and I'm going to ask you to answer the 5 questions. What do you notice about the questions? The questions project what will be. The questions work from in out. The questions are about what you give, not what you get as a leader. Not what did he gain, but what did he give. Not how did he die, but how did he live. These are the yardsticks to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. They're urgent questions because we long for leaders that will answer these questions. We long for leaders that will take these questions and manifest themselves in their daily action. We long for leaders that put others before themselves. Life's 5 most urgent questions. On Monday morning, you'll get an email and we'll start the journey. That email will have the change continuum. Go through it. Later today, I'm meeting with your direct reports, your emerging leaders, and your front line. They'll hear similar concepts, but packaged in a different way. Talk to them about what they heard. Begin the learning dialogue. I look forward to the 15-week journey. I'll be touching base with all of the directors in the coming 3 weeks. I'll call you and we'll talk the program out. Thank you for being a part. And thank you for taking on this initiative to build the public works sector one leader at a time. Have a great weekend, everybody.